Night over the Black Sea does not begin with silence. It starts with alarms. At 22:17 on a cold night in mid-December 2024, a NATO early warning radar station over Romania picks up 3 heavy returns lifting off the dark surface of the Black Sea. Their size, speed, and altitude narrow the options to a single answer: Tu-22M3 backfire C. Long-range Russian bombers turning away from the combat zone after completing their strike. Far above them, at more than 50,000 feet, 2 F-35A Lightning II jets are already in the air, flying in strict emission control. They do not speak on the radio. They do not light their radars. They only turn, slowly, deliberately, onto an intercept course, letting their sensors drink in the heat from the bomber's engines as the distance between them begins to fall. The 3 Tu-22M3 backfire C bombers did not just appear over the Black Sea that night. They were the last beat in a pattern everyone on both sides could feel, even if they never saw it drawn on a map. In December 2024, the crews at Mozdok and Olenia moved through the same routine again and again. Tu-22M3 long-range bombers rolled out, took fuel, took on KH-22N and KH-32 missiles, then lifted into the dark with their noses pointed toward Ukraine and the sea. In briefing rooms, the routes looked almost identical from day to day. Arcs from Russian airfields out over the water, looping toward the southern Ukrainian coast before bending back home. Far to the west, in the Combined Air Operations Center at Torrejon, those arcs were familiar enough that controllers could recognize them at a glance. On the main screen, thin symbols left Russia, climbed, turned south, then slid out over the Black Sea. When Tu-22M3 icons slowed near their firing points, conversations in the room dropped away on their own. When the labels switched from aircraft to KH-22N and KH-32, everyone knew another wave was on the way toward power lines, ports, and fuel storage in the south of Ukraine. On the 17th of December 2024, just before 21:50, the pattern starts again. Along the Ukrainian coast, older P-18 and 36D6 radar sets stare out over the water. On their tired screens, fresh contacts claw upward from the central Black Sea, climbing fast and straight. High above the clouds, infrared sensors on early warning satellites see matching streaks of heat rise, tip over, and fall toward Odessa, Mykolaiv, and the industrial sprawl behind them. On the ground, crews at S-300PS and S-300V1 sites move through actions they no longer have to think about. Engagement radars turn toward the threat, launchers adjust. Voices on internal nets stay tight and short. NASAM's batteries around key facilities run through their final checks on AIM-120C7 launchers. IRIS-T SLM and Patriot PAC-3 MSE units sit further back, watching their own narrow slices of incoming sky. That fight, the one between missiles and interceptors, is already in motion. NATO hears it as fragments over the net. Grid references, impact estimates, the names of systems coming online. But the Alliance's real focus is a few minutes behind the storm, on the aircraft that started it. At 22:11, an E-3A Sentry with the call sign MAGIC turns through its orbit over Romania. Inside its dim cabin, operators lean over their consoles, watching the radar picture shaped by the spinning antenna above them. In the middle of that picture, 3 heavy returns pull away from the launch zone and begin their long curve northeast. Their altitude settles around 11,000 meters. Their speed drops into a steady cruise. Tracks that had lunged forward a few minutes ago now move with deliberate calm. The system tags them in simple text that everyone in the cabin can read without thinking. Tu-22M3 backfire C, 3 aircraft outbound. Above them, an RQ-4D Phoenix drone follows its own invisible line, sensors looking down and sideways at the same 3 bombers. On the coastline, AN/TPS-77 radar sites sweep the sea, picking up those shapes again as they slide toward Crimea. On the picture, the Tu-22M3s are no longer just individual aircraft. They have escorts strung out ahead and to the sides, Su-35s and MiG-31BM watching for Ukrainian fighters. Tankers and ground-based air defense umbrellas lie farther along their route home. For a short distance behind them, though, the sky is open. The order from Torrejon is direct and calm, carried by encrypted data more than by voice. Viper flight, this is magic. Shadow 3, backfire C, maintain emission control. Weapons hold. High above Romania, 2 F-35A Lightning II jets, Italian Air Force, call signs Viper 1 and Viper 2, received the tasking as a new layer of symbols on their displays. 3 red diamonds appear at the edge of the tactical picture, tagged with altitude, speed, heading, and a simple label, Tu-22M3. Around them, blue and green icons show the orbits of Magic, the Phoenix drone, and the arcs of ground-based radars further south. Viper 1 banks just enough to bring his nose onto the intercept line. On his display, the projected path from his current position to the bombers flicks from uncertain to optimal. Viper 2 slides out to the right in a wide combat spread, a few miles abeam and slightly aft, their formation stretched to give their sensors more sky to merge. Throttle forward, the F-35s push through the drag and settle at Mach 1.2, climbing to around 15,000 meters. Outside, the world is a black bowl with a faint gray band where the horizon might be. Inside, the jets feel busy and compressed. Numbers scroll. Range to target counts down in simple steps, just digits changing on the glass, but each one is a little tighter coil around the 3 bombers ahead. The F-35s stay silent. Their own radar, the AN/APG-81, stays on a short leash, held in reserve. For now, everything they know about the Tu-22M3s comes from elsewhere. The broad sweep of Magic's antenna, the high, narrow look-down of the Phoenix drone, the sweep of coastal sensors. The mission computers suck in that information and produce a single, steady answer. 3 bombers here, moving this way, at this height. When the range falls below 100 kilometers, the F-35s stop depending on other people's eyes. On Viper 1's helmet display, 3 faint marks appear low in his field of view. The AN/AAQ-37 distributed aperture system has picked up the heat from the Tu-22M3's engines. At first, the marks look like nothing, small smudges against a cold background, but they harden quickly into points with direction and speed. The computer links them to the tracks from Magic and the ground radars. Everything lines up. Confidence jumps. Those 3 bombers are no longer just remote symbols. The jets can feel them now, like pressure at the edge of their own flight paths. In the lead Tu-22M3, there is no sense of any of this yet. The cabin is cramped and dim, lit by instrument panels and the glow of the navigator's moving map. The crew runs through its own quiet routine. Cross-checks on fuel, time to the next reporting point, distance to the coast. The Obzor MS radar looks forward, not back. The SPO-15 Berryozza warning receiver listens across the spectrum, but hears only the usual crowd of distant systems. The bomb bays are empty. The load under the wings is gone. Fuel numbers are coming down, but still within margins. From where the crew sits, it feels like the most dangerous part of the mission has already happened. Behind them, 2 F-35s close the gap. At 22:24, Viper 1 eases his aircraft into a gentle descent, dropping a little altitude to sit in the band of sky the planners marked weeks ago, high above regular traffic lanes, above the Tu-22M3s, and tucked behind them at an angle their radars are not designed to watch. Viper 2 mirrors the move without needing a word, keeping the spread wide enough that both aircraft see slightly different angles on the same targets. Range ticks down, 90 kilometers, 80, 70. At about 65 kilometers, Viper 1 lets the AN/APG-81 blink once. It is not a sweeping, aggressive search, just a narrow, controlled pulse that reaches out, touches all 3 Tu-22M3s, and cuts off again in less than 2 seconds. On the F-35's screen, that is enough. The bomber's ranges sharpen. Their aspect angles lock into firm numbers. The firing solutions the jet had been carrying in the background snap into place. On the weapons page, AIM-120D3 missiles change from standby to ready. Launch envelopes appear as thin rings around each bomber symbol. Little blocks of text appear next to them. Time of flight, no escape zones, all the cold detail that turns a possibility into a shot. Nothing leaves the weapons bay. Viper 1's thumb rests close to the release control. It stays there. The rules still say weapons hold. No one on the NATO side is here to pull a trigger first. The pressure moves to the other cockpit. In the lead Tu-22M3, the Berioza receiver gives a short, uncertain chirp in the crew's headsets. For a heartbeat, it has seen something from the rear hemisphere, an energy spike just high enough above the noise to register, too brief and too faint to classify. The electronic warfare officer calls it out all the same. The aircraft commander asks for an updated picture from ground control. On a radar scope in a control center far away, the background is crowded. Ukrainian and Russian fighters, NATO patrols, ground-based radars, Magic's broad lobe, everything overlaps. Somewhere in that mass, two returns stand out, not because of how bright they are, but because of what they are doing. High, fast, closing on the Tu-22M3s from behind at a steady angle. The controller cannot name the type, but the geometry is enough. He passes the message in measured, level tones. Possible high-altitude threat to the rear. Range, roughly 100 kilometers. Classification unknown. Maintain heading. Monitor warning systems. Wait for further guidance. It is not dramatic, but in the Tu-22M3 cockpits, grips tighten anyway. A MiG-31BM escort nudges closer on one flank, its own radar tilted back a little farther. The crews run fuel figures again, doing the math with a new tightness in the chest. By 2229, the F-35s are where the planning slide said they should be, roughly 45 kilometers behind the Tu-22M3s, offset to port by a few tens of degrees. High enough to look down, but far enough not to drift into any predictable missile envelope from the escorts. On Viper 1's visor, one of the three heat plumes stands out a little brighter. The computer tags it as the lead bomber. A faint circle appears over it, showing where an AIM-9X Block 2 could take a clean shot if they ever slid closer. Still, the bays stay closed. The Berioza in the Tu-22M3 chirps again, sharper this time. The electronic warfare officer does not bother to hide the edge in his voice when he reports it. Ground control comes back with an update that no one on the bomber crews wants to hear. High probability of hostile fighters behind. Recommended course change, and recommended increase in speed. The Tu-22M3 captains obey without argument. Their aircraft rolled gently onto a new heading, pulling the formation away from the straight line that would have taken them closer to NATO airspace along the Romanian and Bulgarian coasts. Throttles go forward. The NK-25 engines push harder. Mach numbers creep up. The bombers start to eat through the fuel that had been meant to give them a margin on the way home. On the F-35's displays, the change is obvious. The projected tracks for the three bombers bend away from the outer edge of NATO territory and deeper toward the Russian coast, where S-400 and S-300 systems draw wide circles of coverage on the map. From the point of view of the Combined Air Operations Center, it looks like a small kink in three lines. From inside Viper 1 and Viper 2, it feels like something is releasing. The bombers are turning away. The job is done. The F-35s do not chase them into the thicker web of Russian air defense. Viper 1 holds his line just long enough to be sure the new heading is not a feint, then noses up and begins to climb back toward his original patrol track. Viper 2 follows, their speed easing back out of the supersonic range as the distance begins to grow. 45 kilometers, 50, 60, more. The missile envelopes on their screens shrink and vanish. The Tu-22M3's engine plumes fade into smaller marks at the edge of the DAS picture. Within a few minutes, the bombers are just three more tracks among many, watched mostly by Russian controllers as they sink into friendly layers of radar and missile coverage. On paper, what has happened barely fills a line. Three Tu-22M3 bombers egressing the Black Sea, shadowed by two F-35A fighters. No weapons employed. In the air, it has filled almost half an hour of tight, held breath for the people strapped into the cockpits. The Tu-22M3 crews land at their bases later that night, with fuel gauges lower than expected and flight times a little longer than planned. In their debriefing rooms, maps and plots go up on boards. Circles appear around portions of the route where the Berioza spoke and the ground controller's voice changed. There are more questions than answers. How close, what type, and how long were they there? In staff rooms in Moscow, officers slide those same plots across larger tables. They overlay them with circles, marking the reach of S-400, S-300, and shorter-range systems. They add in MiG-31BM and Su-35s patrol lines, tanker tracks for IL-78 refueling aircraft, whatever they can infer about NATO fighters based in Romania. Nobody needs to say F-35 out loud for the possibility of hanging in the air. Over the following days, the curves on the mission maps start to change. Tu-22M3s strike packages launch from deeper inside Russian territory. Their paths arc farther from NATO borders. More fighters are assigned as permanent escorts. Tanker orbits shift to support longer legs. Every change costs something: fuel, airframe hours, flexibility elsewhere. Every small bend in the line on a planning map represents an adjustment to an enemy's habits. Back at Torrejon, the intercept is replayed slowly on a big screen, the way coaches replay key minutes of a game. The moment at 22:29, when the F-35s sit in the bomber's rear arc with clean shots they never take, becomes a frame people point to. The next sequence, where the Tu-22M3s turn away, becomes another. No wreckage on the sea, no explosions, no dramatic footage. Just 3 bombers forced to fly a little farther from where they wanted to be, and an entire route network that will look slightly different the next time they go. For a quiet half hour in the dark over the Black Sea, that is enough. The bombers would fly again. Everyone in the chain knew that. Somewhere on another cold night, Tu-22M3 icons would leave the same airfields, follow the same arc toward the same strip of sea. But after 2229, on December 17th, they would not fly quite the same way. Routes on Russian planning maps shifted a little farther from NATO borders. Extra escorts were added. Tankers were moved. Fuel margins shrank. Every adjustment was a quiet admission that somewhere behind them, out of sight, there might be 2 F-35s waiting to slide into that same invisible pocket of sky. No missiles were fired. No wreckage sank into the Black Sea. Yet 1/2 hour of silent pressure had redrawn lines that took months to build. In modern air war, that is what victory can look like. The enemy still airborne, but already flying around a wound he cannot point to. For NATO, the significance settles slowly across the following days. Analysts trace every moment of the intercept, marking how little force was required to bend a bomber group off its intended line. Commanders studying the replay note the same truth. Sometimes pressure, perfectly applied, reshapes more than firepower ever could. And in the quiet that follows, when new patrol plans are drafted and F-35 crews run through their next briefs, an unspoken confidence threads through the room. The sky has not changed, but the behavior within it has. A single, silent encounter now echoes across every future route the bombers dare to fly.